So, welcome everyone to the episode of Talent Talk. Again, my name is Anna Lynch, and I'm a tech recruiter at Understanding Recruitment. And in this series, I am trying to connect with tech leaders, senior decision makers in general in recruitment and tech space. As the name suggests, talk talent. Each episode will have slightly different topic, or we'll be touching on a bit different issue people might have. So our guests will be able to give a bit of an insight, a bit of a story behind, and help out as much as they can with their expertise. Today we'll be tackling very broad space, very up and coming market, which is DevSecOps and how it kind of affects recruitment. And my guest is Pedro Arias, who is the head of DevSecOps at Accenture in Spain. So great to have you on board, Pedro. And to start with, would you be able to briefly introduce yourself, your background, your experience in this space?
Sure, Anna. Thank you. Thank you very much first for having here. And well, as you said, I am the head of DevSecOps at IBERIA, which is mostly focused on Spain. I've been my whole career at Accenture. It's about 6 years and a half focused on growing into the DevSecOps area and the container security space. And I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Sounds great. We will start with quite general, and we'll probably pick up on some more specific questions as we go. So to start with, what would you say are trends are you seeing hiring DevSecOps people at the moment?
Well, in this space, I think the trends is sometimes lack of trends, and I'm going to explain myself because what I'm seeing is that, and I think we have commented a couple of times in another topic, but there is like this tendency of asking for unicorns that I am seeing, that there are huge requirements with a lot of areas touching site reliability, touching something that it's more close to development environment, other areas really focused on operations, including clusters, including cloud. So that's sort of what I'm seeing, that it's a real big request for the roles. But at the same time, I'm really optimistic because I'm starting to see as well companies that are taking care of bounding a little bit more the role description, uh, focusing a bit more on what the project can offer, not only what the talent or the one it's joining the or applying for the job can offer at the same time. So on top of that, I would say trendy technologies are what it's been more requested in the DevSecOps landscape, with some stable ones like maybe CI/CD specialization or containers ability. That's what I see.
That's great, and you pretty much already responded to my next question, which would be what's the specific skills and qualities do you think kind of make people in DevSecOps space stand out a bit more against some other candidates? So you've mentioned CI/CD, containers. Any other areas or kind of qualities of backgrounds would kind of benefit people in DevSecOps kind of job search?
For sure. One thing I like to comment first, and it's for me a really important quality, and should be maybe taken in consideration in the interviews more, is the attitude, the way someone approaches a challenge, because maybe it doesn't fit perfectly your job description, but if he or she is able to tackle and can prove that can tackle a really complex challenge with similar nature, it's something that I really go through and I give value to that, not only what the resume is indicating. But talking about the technical skills per se, I think it's really important to go to the basis first. At least is my recommendation. So having a good understanding of networking, infrastructure, not even technology specific, but it's going to apply when you're going to talk about cloud. You will need to know CADRs, spaces, IPs, how things connect. But if you go to the Kubernetes environments, for example, it will be those same kind of baseline concepts with the particularities of the technology. That's one part. And another part that I think it's really important and maybe it's overlooked a little bit because in the DevSecOps space, I think for a long time security was the major factor, the major focus. But I would say focusing as well on developing some development skills, it's going to be super, super helpful for the role because if you are going to tackle an integration, having development skills, real development skills, will help you a lot. In fact, the abstraction around development, it, when you kind of manage that properly, it helps you to expand that. If you are going to develop a pipeline, if you already know a strong ground of coding basis, it's going to be easier. Yeah, that's so. Those are the technical skills for me that are more relevant.
Mm. I really like it, and you gave like a good baseline. But what I like as well that you pointed out that how important is that attitude and learning interest as well. Like you said, not everyone is a unicorn, and companies might not be able to find them. So that will be a massive factor to make sure they can actually fill those roles. Maybe the next kind of part, which I would love to kind of get your opinion on or advice on, for teams which maybe never had previously DevSecOps roles available and they are looking into, okay, let's build up a new function. Let's start interviewing for this position. They put some job specification together. How would you advise them to assess candidate fit for DevSecOps role? What would you advise the interview process should look like, or any kind of particular techniques or criteria would you suggest? I know it's a very loaded question, so we can break it down point by point.
This is a tricky situation to be in, but I know a lot of enterprises are because it's difficult to evaluate candidates based if the ones making the interview, let's say, are not really specialized on that matter. But I would use my previous answer to connect to this one. So for me, what are the bases? So okay, maybe the enterprise is not really specialized in all the techniques. So I would divide it in three areas. One, the candidate capabilities of interacting with people, to be organized, to, I don't know, have client interfacing. So that will tell the story about how this person can be connected with several people, several teams, because it's super needed for a cross role like DevSecOps. You will need to interact with developers, with operations teams, with the security, or you even going to put your security things into place. I would say not as a mandatory requirement, but it's something that it's really helpful to maybe consider. It's the certifications, not as a rejectable if there are other areas that are being covered, but when you are not really certain, maybe looking for some of the major certifications, like, I don't know, practical DevSecOps ones that are really reputed, or Linux Foundation, those kind of things maybe would be oriented if the interviewer does not know really the full depth of the concepts. And then going to what I commented. So let's assume you don't have these DevSecOps in-depth experience, but you could trim down the technical concepts and maybe have a little development challenge, see how the candidate operates in that regard. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to show that there is critical thinking, there is a way of abstracting. So that would be my recommendation. But at the same time, I think there are lovely resources in internet. For example, there is one repository called DevOps Interviews, a little bit outdated, but it if you don't have that kind of knowledge, it will help you as an interviewer to go through that for sure. And if you have the possibility to maybe contact with I don't know, any collaboration with other enterprise or whatever that can go to the interview. I think if you are starting with a person, it's really critical. So maybe you can ask for the favor in this one.
Yeah, that I really like it. And as well, not only utilizing your own resources in the baseline, you can check, finding out a bit maybe external help, how to either with like some questions you can find with answers, or even like external interviewers or like advisors. Again, like you said, it's very important to get that right, especially if it's their first role and no one actually knows that spaces of yet. So really good ideas along here. And maybe just to flip it on from the kind of company's perspective as well, kind of advise candidates who might be interested into applying for jobs like that, or introducing themselves and transitioning to more DevSecOps space. What advice would you give to candidates to stand out in the competition of trying to get DevSecOps jobs? And like maybe what would be like your advices across, I don't know, their what they should invest themselves in as well?
Um, in my perspective, the specialization starts with passion about what you are doing. So I would say that's the first recommendation. Whenever you have the opportunity in your job, try to test new technologies, try to tackle new challenge. Don't get scoped in your area, because those roles that we are talking about, super unicorns, maybe you cannot be the expert, but knowing a bit, being able to correlate concepts will help you a lot in that regard. Uh, Also, I would say certifications are really important from the candidate perspective for a couple of things. Not only for what the resume indicates, because for me that's maybe the less important one, uh, although there are companies that are taking that in consideration a lot, but it kind of helps you to organize your ideas, to the theoretical part, not only the technical part. So why a concept is important, why companies are operating in a way. So this kind of bigger picture normally could be obtained through learning, or learning through a really experienced guide. Hopefully, I mean, lovely. The community is really big as well, so there are many resources that the users can take advantage of. But it's also for me really important in this consideration, because there are a couple of times that interviewers could do or make the questions based on what they are constantly working with, and maybe they have super fresh one concept, and they could, I mean, just to put out an example question, what are the security measures that you would introduce in a DevSecOps pipeline? Maybe the enterprise is doing in a way, and they ask you about that. You don't have this fresh, and and you may seem like you are not an expert, but maybe you are covering the rest of it. So having this sort refreshed before going to the interview procedure is something that I really recommend on that. But mostly, and as a summary, loving technology and try to get the best possible when you have the opportunity.
And I, as well, like from my brief knowledge about some of the technology certifications that are available, and a lot of them these days are very, not only give you that theoretical knowledge, but as well helps you with the hands-on learning how to do certain tasks and expand your knowledge accordingly with like a good best practice, which might not be as available in some of the environments they work in. Are there any specific certifications you particularly would recommend personally? Maybe you've done them or heard some good opinions about?
Completely. I think that I am passionate about practical DevSecOps. This is organization. There are a couple of interesting ones that can provide a really good baseline. The certified DevSecOps professional, which is good for a starting point. I don't think personally that makes you really a DevSecOps professional end to end, but gives a really good background. the expert version, which is the following one, which goes into more depth and it's more challenging and really nice. I like it. But as I said, not only focusing on practical DevSecOps, which in my opinion, it's my favorite one because they give really good theoretical background with guided exercises, with challenges. So it's, at least for me, it's my favorite. But there are others really interesting for the other parts of the equation, let's say, and I like it a lot as well. The Linux Foundation certifications. You can have background on Linux skills is really important for all these areas. The Kubernetes ones, I really like those as well.
And as well, there's like CKS, so the security specific around
That
containers, which
one,
I feel
yeah.
is this really kind of hot topic. And I feel like already Kubernetes experience is quite challenging to find, and actually having that security expertise in that space, I think would put candidates in quite a good spot, even if they haven't had much experience hands-on in the work environment. That could be quite good certification to undertake to impress the employers.
I cannot agree more. In fact, I would say the concepts that are tackled in the certificate Kubernetes security for Linux Foundation, in my opinion, are more complete than many clusters you will see in real scenarios and real experience. So yeah, it's really a strong ground if you take that.
Mm. I'll keep that as well once I am interviewing candidates. If they have CKS, I will be like, okay, you know what you're talking about. um, and maybe just to wrap up on that candidate experience, and considering, let's say, candidates kind of interviewed across a couple of DevSecOps position and they actually perform really well, and they actually have multiple offers in the space, what would be your advice to candidates? What should be the key factor about evaluating the potential employees regarding their environment from the DevSecOps perspective?
Well, there is one part that I'm not going to comment specifically, which are obviously the economic
Of
options
course.
and the combination
All of
with
the
life.
logistics and stuff, yeah.
So let's assume that all are in the same
Yeah.
space or in the same bundle, for that matter. So for me, it's really important to consider one, which project are you going and the perspective of the project. Why I'm saying that? Because the project may seem or look interesting, but maybe there are 3 months of focus or 6 months of focus, but what is behind that? Is there any strategy? Is the department going in a direction? You will get to know that in the interview if you make the right questions. So for me, it's important to know what could be behind the curtains. At the same time, it depends on the challenge, but assuming that you're going to not be the starting point, if you're going to a team that it's present there, for me, it's really important who is surrounding you. Not only the what it's written in the job offer, but are there people that you could trace, that you could investigate, that you know that those are good, that they have community presence, that they are skilled as well. Because I think this area is challenging enough and fast paced, has changing all the time, new technologies. Being surrounded by really capable team helps you go reach farther objectives. So I would say at the same time, this is really important. And finally, I would consider as well the openness, and I'm going to explain myself a bit. How many options do you have to move or to collaborate with other parts inside the role? Not to feel too tight in a role, because at least how the market is going, being wide is still really important here.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I really like that is not just one thing. And of course, like you said, there are some external factors which always will be maybe even swaying people from choosing one job than another. But in all fairness, like if you're taking the new job, you might be there for a couple of years, and you want to make sure that during the interview process, you as well evaluating your potential employer with those type of questions to make sure that you don't end up with an offer and actually not really actually being really sure whether it's the right thing or not, and closing yourself to the growth you could have somewhere else. So I really, really like it. And I think everyone, regardless, this is probably even bigger, not just DevSecOps, but maybe this space especially, but like in general for any tech roles, like those couple of pointers are really, really good to consider throughout the interview process to make sure you secure your best options out there for yourself.
I really think that.
Yeah, I love that we agreed in the end. So I think that's probably the best place to stop, because I think we've covered really, really good ground across both the experience for the employers and how to kind of tackle their DevSecOps journey and interviews, as well as help maybe a bit to some of the people who are looking into getting into DevSecOps space and what to consider and how to perform and how to prepare to those interview. So thank you very much for volunteering your time and helping me out with this episode. And I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to hearing it and learning about more stuff like that. So definitely we'll do some follow-ups.
More than happy to talk about this. I'm passionate about it. So
Brilliant. Thank you.
thank you very much.